Hey guys, welcome back. If you ever struggle doing abstract art and you need an easy place to start, acrylic pouring might be perfect for you. Although it can get kind of advanced, you can start off very simple. To make our paint, we're going to use acrylic. You can use any type, and Floetrol. They actually have this on Amazon, and there's an affiliate link in the description if you want to try it out. So I'm going to add a half a cup of acrylic and 1 cup of Floetrol. You don't have to use this exact amount, but you're going to want to use twice as much Floetrol as you do paint. Now we're going to mix these two together before we add any water, since they're the same consistency. The water we're going to add little by little, because you're going to need a different amount depending on how thick your acrylic paint was. All the stuff I'm telling you, my friend Nikki actually taught me. She's the one right here, and she's showing us that when you draw a line on the stick, the paint should slowly come back together. You can see it's not here, so it's much too thick, and I'm going to keep adding water little by little until it gets thin enough. So a quick recap, you're going to want to use twice as much Floetrol as acrylic paint, and then add water till it's about the consistency of like a melted smoothie. It's the only thing I could think of to compare it to. But you can see how well all these paints are pouring when my hand's not blocking. You can see there about how thin it needs to be. You just want it thin enough so that it can run easily across your page. So here I'm squirting in all these paints, by the way. They're all Nikki's, and they were all made the same way we made that blue paint. So you can pour it in the cup any way you want, but I'm using the technique of going right in the center. I actually kind of like that because I feel like it adds a lot of bubbles into the paint. And we're not using silicone here, but we can still kind of get those bubbles in the artwork when you squirt the paint in like this. At least that's what I have found. After you have all your paint ready, you're going to want to cover the canvas in white paint. And I know it was in a Floetrol bottle, but it's actually just white paint that was made the same way as we made that blue paint. So, and you're going to want to do this only after your paint is ready to be flipped, because you want it to not be dry at all. You want it to be ready to go as soon as you're done. So I'm running it all the way to the edges because the sides of the canvas need to be covered too. And you want to make sure you focus on the corners. I kind of learned that through the course of the day, that the corners were the most important part. So here I'm just doing the basic flip, and you can see there's thumbtacks in the board. And that's something Nikki taught me, because you want the board risen up for 2 reasons. One, it's easier to pick up without having to put a thumbprint on to the front. And 2, it's not going to sit in those puddles, so the edges of the canvas won't be ruined. Now it's time for my favorite part. By the way, I'm a mess already, and we haven't even started. But I'm just slowly picking it up little by little. You can yank it off, you can slide it around even more than I did. You can do this part however you want. This is where we start to get into the techniques and the parts where you can make it more complicated or you can keep it simple. This is actually, here's a secret, this is actually my very first one. And I wanted an ocean wave kind of vibe. So that's why I used all the different shades of blue and like the seafoam greens. So I like all the bubbles and the designs, so I'm trying not to lose them. And the way you do that is by tipping it back and forth, because if you just tip it one way and let it run, it'll all just run off onto the side. You can still get a cool design like that, and sometimes you might want to do that. Now if you watch this bottom corner closely, you can see the white paint helping the rest of the paint run off. And that is why adding that layer of white paint is so important. And like I said, it's especially important to make sure it's very thick around the corner. Now, if you like the design that it is right now, make sure to watch one of my next videos that I'll be posting, because I did do one that looked similar to this at the end. But for this one, I'm going to be changing it up a little bit. So what I'm doing for the next few minutes here is covering these corners, but keeping that central blob of cells, keeping that in the center. So I'm kind of just running to the edges, but then pulling it back. So that just takes a couple minutes of back and forth, and that's what I'm doing right now. If you like the way this painting turns out, where it looks like a splashing wave, the way you can achieve that, and it's almost there now, not quite, but it's getting there. You can start to see it forming, how it's going to be splashing off towards that top corner. The way you can do that is through basic zigzagging, where you're just stretching it out and pulling it back and just tipping it back and forth to create a kind of zigzag, but keeping that bottom part solid so that it has that effect where it looks like it's splashing off into the top corner. At this point I had a little white left in that bottom corner, but I didn't want to lose that dark blue and sea foam because then it would just kind of be all light blue in that area. I really like that dark blue, so I was just adding a little paint to try and kind of cover it up and help it slide a little bit. Now I'm going to use a heat gun, so watch these areas closely. The heat is going to bring bubbles to the surface and create a lot of little cells in the paint. Don't worry if you don't have a heat gun like this. You can also use a torch. That's actually much more common, and they even have this at the gas station for a few bucks, so don't be intimidated. Go pick one up, and it's perfect to add extra cells to your picture. I'm shaking it like that because I don't want to go over one area too long. As you can see in this bottom corner, the paint kind of starts to dry and you don't want to overheat it. You can also see it's blowing the paint a little bit. This heat gun has just the slightest amount of air coming out of it, which is actually nice because you can manipulate the painting a little bit more, but if you don't like that, the torch is a better option. So now I decided I wanted to tip it toward that corner a little bit, but since I had dried that paint, once it started to move after a certain point, I was afraid it would roll over the dry paint, so I put it back down. Now I'm just trying to show you guys what the painting looks like before it dries, without the lighting reflecting in it. It will change as it dries. Some of the colors will darken, some will lighten, and sometimes even more bubbles will come through. Super fast before I show you the final piece, I just wanted to say Nikki and I had so much fun making these, and even if you've never done it before, you can come out with a cool piece of abstract art every single time. I've had so much fun making all these videos, trying all new types of art, so thank you for supporting me in that. Please subscribe to my channel so you can see my future videos. Alright, here is the final piece. It darkened up a lot while it dried, but it is an abstract beach wave. I really hope you guys give acrylic pouring a try. It is so much fun to do, and every single time you get a beautiful painting.